Hello everyone, my name is Ishan Jolly, also known as the JollyLegend, and welcome to this video where I'm demonstrating the settings and setup I use with the GOXLR for my live streams. So, shall we get into this? So, here are the settings that I use, and we'll get into them in a moment. First off, you've been listening to this microphone processed with these effects run. Now, this is the microphone flat, so I feel like you can hear quite a big difference, you know. It really doesn't emphasize the voice anywhere near as much. So if you have a really nice voice and you want to, emphasize that, then use my settings. So when you go to mic setup, I set mine at 20 decibels because this is a very bright microphone. There is like no self-noise on this microphone, the Lewitt LCT 540 Sub-Zero. It is an amazing microphone and I would absolutely recommend it. So mine is set to 20 decibels. And this is how it sounds like from about this far away from my face. So, lovely. Face. I say words weird sometimes when I'm... Anyway. Right, so that's the mic setup. Anyway, basically, you just want the voice to be in between the halfway low and the line where it says loud, right? That's a good starting point because we're going to compress it to bring up the levels and make it nice and loud later. But right now, you want the signal to never clip going into it, So this is a good setting when you're just speaking at a regular voice. It should be around about here-ish. And there is that. Okay. Now noise gates. I've been playing around with just not having a noise gate. Because, I sometimes notice how, when I start speaking, it just feels like my voice is getting switched on and then switched off, because that's how a noise gate is, right? So just having like the breaths and just the slight tiny bit of background noise and keyboard sounds, game sounds, it's actually kind of nice, You kind of like feel more engaged, like as a viewer. I like to watch my VODs back, right? So like hearing the like controller clicking or the keyboard clicking, you feel like you're in the room, right? Whereas with the noise gate, you just hear the voice and it's like the voice is in a vacuum almost. And sure, that's a great sound, but it's kind of cool to mess around with no gate. Plus, it feels smoother when you start speaking and stop speaking. Whereas with a gate, you can kind of hear it shut on and shut off if you're experienced enough listening-wise. But hey, if you prefer it with a gate, leave it on. These are my settings. Minus 53 decibels of threshold, just because it's 10%. It looks nice from the small one. Attenuation, I went for the haha funny number, but anywhere in between 40 and 80 is good. I wouldn't recommend 100 because that is literally just the cut and cut out. And you could put it lower if you were liking the sound I had earlier but still want a slight bit of reduction. Because this is just effectively how much the volume is reduced by when the gate is on. So anytime the volume goes below this threshold, it'll be reduced by this much. The attack, you want that to be as fast as possible. So the moment any noise above this gets through, so like your voice, the moment you start speaking, the gate opens and the voice comes through. So the attack, fast as possible. That's how I would recommend it. And release, I think 200 milliseconds is nice. Because if you make it very, very quick, then it's going to shut down in between words and in between like syllables even. Because effectively, anytime the volume is going below this, it's shutting it off, shutting the gate off. And too long, you're just leaving the gate basically open. So like 2,000 milliseconds, the gate is open for 2 seconds afterwards, and you might as well just not use the gate at that point. So I say about 200 milliseconds is a nice sort of time. It's not too long to the point where there's basically no point, and it's not too fast that it cuts off the ends of your words or makes it sound, kind of cut and cut out, which is a sound I absolutely hate. Like, strong noise gates, I would rather hear background noise than a strong noise gate, is how I would put it. Right. So, now that is the gate settings. Right. Now, equalisation. This is the EQ curve that I pretty much give every one of my microphones, and then I tweak it later depending on which mic. So if a mic's darker, I maybe add some treble. If a mic is thinner, maybe add some more bass. But I feel like these ones work well across all microphones that I've tested. And sure, maybe this is too much for you. Maybe this is too processed. I like really processing my voice, because it really brings the voice forward, because without EQ, like, I think it still sounds nice with just compression, right? But, I feel like the EQ in the high end and the low end just kind of brings forward the voice and just makes it more powerful and in your face and, all that sorts of stuff. So that's why it's like Some people can try out my settings and not like them. It's just because I know this is going to sound bad, but you just don't like the sound of your own voice, because these settings bring the voice forward effectively. Right. But, okay, I guess that's not fair to say, because these settings complement a deep voice very well, or a dark voice, because it brings the voice forward. But if you already have a piercing voice, it won't complement it as much. Therefore, turn the treble down, or turn the bass down. I'm not very experienced at EQing voices unlike mine, so I guess my videos are best suited to people who have voices like mine. Which is nice, because not many people, well, I guess a lot of people have voices like mine, but not many like reviewers or tutorials have voices like mine. Most of the tutorials are American, which in and of itself, the American accent is way more piercing than the British accent is, or the Australian accent, or a lot of more softer accents. Like if I start talking like this, like you can already hear it's a bit more piercing, you know? Like, hello, ladies and gentlemen, welcome, boys and girls. I am using the Lewitt LCT 540 Sub-Zero through my TC Helicon GOXLR. You know, if I go like that, my voice is already more piercing, and maybe I'd use different settings for that, right? But this is a standard EQ curve I apply to pretty much all of my microphones, if I want something, you know, nice and processed. However, if I want something more subtle, I just change all of these 4s into 2s, effectively half all these positive values. So for these two, I set them to 2, and this one I set to 1, and these two I set to 2. So it's still slightly curved in the way I like it, but it's not over the top, and it's not like super processed. And if you really wanted to, you could go like really nice and boomy, and go like maybe like this perhaps, and just really, really bring out the voice. And you can hear me speak deeper, because if I start speaking higher up, it'll be a bit annoying, right? But if you want to, you know, do this and go, or something, I don't know. If you just want to, you know, really sort of bring forward the voice, and just make sure you've got a voice that's really nice to listen to, because that brings it really far forward. But yes, as a quick suggestion, I would go with these settings. And it kind of works with everything, but you can play around with it to your liking, right? Okay, now compression. Now, compression is by far my favorite effect, and honestly, it's so good on the GOXLR. Like, I've tried a lot of compressors on a lot of different things, DBX286S, the Lewitt Connect 6, UAD, a bunch of different compressors, and the GOXLR's one is my favorite. It's just, oh, and also the Rodecaster Pro 2, that compressor is like, at least in my experience, the Rodecaster Pro 2's compressor was like, yikes. The Rodecaster Pro 2's processing, I didn't really like it, so, yeah. I would have loved to like that interface, because if it was like a GOXLR with 4 inputs, I would have loved it. 4 inputs, slightly higher quality preamps, higher quality headphone amps, would have been great, right? But no, for me, the GOXLR is still my end-all be-all interface, and there's nothing been better than that. Which is annoying, because, like, I mean, it's perfectly fine, it's not that annoying, but I just want to upgrade. Anyways, right, so my threshold is minus 16 decibels, so effectively anytime the volume of the bass signal gets above minus 16 decibels, it activates the compressor, okay? The ratio I have is 4:1, so every decibel above minus 16 decibels gets divided by 4. So if I'm speaking at, say, minus 12, that 4 decibel difference gets divided by 4, and now it's a 1 decibel difference. If I'm speaking at like minus 2, that 14 decibel difference gets divided by 4, and then it's that much above minus 16. So effectively, it controls and brings down the loudest parts of the audio without changing the quieter parts, is the first 2 bits. The attack is how quickly the compressor activates, so you could have it super fast, and then it just instantly activates the moment you start speaking or the moment the audio goes above. But I like to have it at 2 milliseconds, so it's still really quick, but it's not like instant. So there's a slight bit of the audio above the threshold, above the rate, without being compressed, before it gets compressed 2 milliseconds in. So it just sounds better in my ears. But hey, you can play around with it. You can go for a really long attack. So the voice is full volume for the whole time before it gets, well, not full time, but for 10 milliseconds before it gets compressed. But I think 2 milliseconds is good. Now release. Release is an interesting one. So release is how quickly the compressor stops, right? So if you set it at 0, then the compressor stops effectively every time it goes below -16, like instantly, right? So then again, it can be a bit unnatural, but if you want that super punchy, dynamic, compressed sound, then just set these both at 0 and go for that. But my recommendation is 100 milliseconds, so that kind of allows it to trail off slightly and allows you to finish the word, like still, you know, it's very technical, but effectively, these are the settings I recommend, these are the ones I use, and this is how it sounds. Righty, now makeup gain. So what I've talked about so far has reduced the volume, right? So it's reduced it so that there's nothing loud, effectively, in the signal. Then what we do is boost it all up with makeup gain. So I do 12 decibels of makeup gain, and this is only possible on the GOXLR, because the GOXLR has a built-in limiter. No matter how much you push the audio, it doesn't clip. Well, I mean, in the compressor. Well, I guess you can make it clip if you went crazy. But you can kind of push it beyond safe levels by a slight bit and get a nice, super compressed, loud, broadcasty signal using the compressor and the limiter in tandem. And it still sounds good and doesn't clip. Whereas trying to do that on any other audio interface, yeah, no, that ain't gonna work. But yeah, these are the compression settings I like to use. Sometimes it feels too loud with this, because this does make the microphone very loud. And I like that, because then I can have the game audio louder, the music audio louder, all that sort of stuff louder, and then the viewers on their end can turn it down. Right? Like, I feel like making things louder is way better for a viewer experience, because they can just turn their device down. However, if someone's listening on, like, you know, bad headphones or on phone speakers, if it's too quiet and you have to boost it up a lot, that's really annoying. Like, I have a friend on Twitch who I watch, and her stream is, like, really quiet. So I have to use a plugin that has an audio compressor built in and max the volume on that, and then it's, like, listenable. So it's just nice to have it loud, because then you can just turn the slider down. Whereas if it's too quiet, it's very harder to add gain, you know, on a website like Twitch. So there are my compression settings. And that's how I like my audio. Now, de-essing. De-essing is an interesting one, because I've been playing around with it a little bit recently, but I feel like when I de-ess my voice, I watch it back and it just feels like any word with an S in it, that word has just been taken away, you know? So like whenever I'm speaking, right now, some of the S's are a bit sharp, because this is quite an airy microphone, and we boosted the treble quite a bit. So maybe if I had like 15% de-essing, or whatever, around about there, 15%, then it takes away some of that sharpness and some of the edginess, and that can be a good sound too. I feel like I like the airy, trebly sound, even with some sibilance, so I just don't really use a de-esser. But say I went 40% and just had like a, you know, there's like no sibilance whatsoever, maybe not no, but it does suppress the sibilance by quite a bit. I'm not sure I like this sound, because all the S sounds are just kind of pushed back, and all my settings are about pushing the voice forwards, right? So, yeah. And then if I go 100%, it just sounds like I've got a lisp at this point. It's very annoying for me to listen to, so I wouldn't recommend doing this, because it just makes the voice kind of unclear and just pushes back all these S sounds. And yeah, this is how I like my audio. And there we go. I hope this has helped you guys out with deciding on your GOXLR settings. And if you just copy the thing and it sounds great for you, then I am glad to hear that. And if it doesn't, well, play around with the settings. That's the cool thing about audio, is that you can play around with the settings. If it sounds too harsh, you can turn down to the treble. If it sounds too bassy, you can turn down the bass. Or cut out some upper bass, mid frequencies. There's like a lot of things you can do to play around with and make the microphone sound exactly how you would like it. Right, okay, well there are my current settings that I use for live streaming in 2023. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching, see you all later, and goodbye.